Okay, so look, we need to have a serious conversation, man. You've been using Windows XP for 20 years. Kids who were born when Windows XP was released can vote, and you're still using it. So look, we need to have a discussion about end of support and what it really means. And most importantly, why you need to let go and move on.
You need to move on.
So, what's end of support? And why is it important? As always, let's start from the beginning. What is end of support? So end of support is a situation where a software company is no longer releasing updates for a software. That means they're not producing security patches, they are literally letting it die. I'd like to say this is a good thing, and we'll dive into why in just a bit. Why would a company do this? I think, let's go back. Remember, software is built by engineers, and engineers can't just pay rent on goodwill, meaning development time is finite. Development resources are finite.
This universe is finite, its resources finite.
And so when a software company releases a version of software, they can only support it for a certain amount of time. Once that time comes, one of two things happens. Either if the company was successful, they'll release a new version, and you are always encouraged to update and upgrade, go to the next level. Or B, if the company was not as successful as they hoped, guess what? They close down their offices and they go home, and that piece of software dies. A very, very sad death. However, this isn't always the case. In fact, in most cases, what happens is an older version is let go in favor of a newer version, and users are encouraged to upgrade from the older version to the newer version, which we've already touched on. That's what happens when companies are successful with their software and they can keep developing it. But let's talk a bit about why that is. So take, for example, a large piece of software, things like operating systems or large databases. And let me use Linux and Windows as very good examples, and this will make sense in a bit. When you're building something as massive as an operating system, you have layers and layers and layers of software, each dependent on the next. However, as technology advances and hardware changes and user requirements change, the foundation upon which this massive piece of software was built has to evolve and change. And there's a limit to how many changes you can make on that old foundation before it can no longer be considered A, an original product, or B, it's not powerful enough to actually handle the changes that are required of it. So what happens? You simply stop making it and start working on a new version. And that's how you move from version 1 to version 2. Yes, you will have your updates in version 1 as you move along, but in version 2, it's completely different. And this is how you move from Windows XP to Vista to 7 to 8 to 9. What happened to Windows 9? Does someone know what exactly happened to Windows 9? Because I don't. Do you? Hashtag what happened to Windows 9. We need to find out. And so we can see how that continuity is built. You can move from an old product to a new product. But sometimes you have critical systems that can't move easily. And this is where Linux, and I'll use Ubuntu as an example, have a really interesting approach, and this is called long-term support. And what this means is you have a version of that operating system that will be supported for an extended period of time. In fact, in most cases, you have these operating systems, and I'll use, let's say, Ubuntu 20.4 is going to be supported for 5 years, receiving updates, and then it gets extended support for another 5 years where the focus is on security. And so that way, the life of that piece of software is extended to 10 years, giving customers the stability they need. And we see this is true across most server software, both in Linux and in Windows. So yeah, there will be a time when the support will end, but it does buy you time. Okay, so then what do you do if a piece of software that you're using is nearing end of support? And it's important to note here that this isn't just for large pieces of software. In the open source world, this could be an individual library that is maybe no longer being supported. Option 1 is look for an upgrade. In some cases, in the open source world and also in the closed source world, you might find that a feature or a library has been integrated into the core feature set. And so that library is no longer needed. And that really helps because everything slowly becomes centralized. And that allows for better security updates and, most importantly, easier distribution of the software. The next option, of course, is if you can't find an upgrade for that piece of software, is to look for an alternative. But the rule for end of support is simple. It's time to let go.
No, God!
Look, bro, come on. You've been using Windows XP for 20 years. You need to let go. And I know it's Valentine's Day was like last week or something. You need to let go. Come on. I know you love XP with all your heart. And I know that passion burns deep within. But my friend, it's time to let go. It's over. Let go.
No, God, please, no! 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 No!